Hi everybody, welcome. I'm Laura Jones, and in this session I'm going to be speaking with ultrarunner Sophie Power. Sophie's completed some of the world's toughest ultras, including the 153-mile Spartathlon, the 260-mile Spine Fusion race and the 150-mile UTMB. And it's undoubtedly that UTMB race back in 2018 for which she is most recognised, having been photographed breastfeeding her 3-month-old son at one of the checkpoints. The photograph went viral and very much prompted a global conversation about motherhood and sport. As well as being an ultrarunner mother, Sophie's also an entrepreneur and is passionate about encouraging women in sport. She's 37 years old, lives in the UK with her husband and 2 young sons. Sophie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get into the detail and I sort of start asking you questions, perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about your background and how your running journey started.
So I was the non-runner, the real non-runner. So I came second last in the mile at school. I was slightly overweight and really unfit. And then I got a friend, basically said I was a bit lost. I was 26. I'd lost my job. I was just really lost, didn't know what to do. And a friend had just done the Marathon des Sables. And he said, you know what, you'd be really good at this because you're really good at hiking. And everyone hikes it. It's not a race, a run. Everyone hikes this. And I signed up for the Marathon des Sables with 9 months to train, having never really run more than that mile in my life. And I realized I loved it. I realized I loved everything about ultra running, being out there, being out in nature, meeting new people. I was pretty tough. I get better. I still get better the longer the distance. And since then, I kind of started a running journey, doing lots of different ultra marathons, but never really going back to the shorter stuff because I don't do that. It's too painful.
So what year was that you did Marathon des Sables?
I did Marathon des Sables in 2010.
Oh, so just 10 years, and you started off with a 150-mile multi-stage race?
So I did. So I started. I think he got me to sign up in the July, and the race was in the April. So I did a few of the shorter stage races. I think my first race was 90 miles over 3 days in the UK. Then a couple of kind of back-to-back races. Then working up to the Marathon des Sables. But that was my kind of first big race, stage race, and several stage races since. And they're so different to just going out and running one distance non-stop. But yeah, it was a bit jumping in the deep end. I do like to jump in the deep end, but that was quite extreme.
Yeah, quite. And so just trying to understand your motivations, what was it that you said you realised that you seem to get better the greater the distance? Is that what kind of drove you to continue to push forward and to enter these bigger, these more challenging races?
I think so. I think the more challenging races have really started since I've had the boys, and thinking that you can't really go away it's difficult to go away for 9-10 days, do a kind of 6-day stage race with all the travel. So we were doing stage race. Actually, my husband and I did 2 stage races together in Nepal and in Iceland, which is amazing, but we can't both go away. So since I've had the boys, it's actually when I've been doing more 100-milers, Spartathlon, Spine. Spine was kind of 5 days away. I had a deadline on Spine because it's a 7-day race, but I need to be back for pickup. And so I only actually had 5 days to do it because my parents were like, we're not taking the kids any longer. So it's really been that, and trying to kind of find my limits in a safe way and see what's out there. And some of the most spectacular races are the longest. And you also can want to make the most of your time, really. So if you spend all day getting somewhere and then you do a short race, you could do a longer one. So it's in a way, I don't know where the limits are, but there are definitely longer ones I'd like to try.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite race distance now? Have you sort of found a distance that you really like best, or?
I really like 100 miles in the mountains, or 100, certainly over 100k in the mountains. I love going through the night. I love seeing sunrise. I think seeing sunrise after the dark is such kind of an emotional event, and it's so wonderful feeling that sense of rejuvenation. So definitely races I see sunrise. I love Spartathlon. I think maybe it's not a distance because you can't really compare races in terms of distance. So Spartathlon is far longer than UTMB, but took me far less time. It's 50% longer, but took me less time. So I think races, anything from 20 to 40 hours is a nice time.
It's not like comparing road marathons, is it? Where, Berlin is similar to London. If you run London in 3, you're not going to run Berlin in 2 and 15. So but with ultras they're all so different. So yeah, that's a good answer. Who or what have had the biggest influence or impact on your ultra running journey? Any particular people or?
That's a good question. I think I started this out really very much on my own. And I didn't have friends doing it. And I've met some of my best friends along the way. I met my friend Ronnie in the Marathon des Sables, and we're still really close friends now. I had a guy in my tent called Tom who was a recovering alcoholic, and I actually flew out to America when he was running across to run his penultimate day. So I think I'm inspired by a lot of the stories. I think in terms of kind of helping me along the journey, I was very lucky to have Robbie Britton coach me for Spartathlon, and he was my kind of first coach. Until 2016, I never had a training plan. I was working so hard and had the boys. I was just trying to fit stuff in. And now Edwina Sutton's my coach, and she coached me for UTMB. Probably the only person that would take a call from someone who said they've just had a baby 6 weeks ago, and can you get me to a 106-mile race in not many weeks. So I think I rely on them to to keep it all together for me now, and just nudge me to push myself a little bit more than I have done in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just touched on UTMB then, so let's talk about that a little bit now. Obviously that photograph, incredible photograph, which I think it was the first time that I got in touch with you was not long after that, because, just to let you know how inspiring I'd found it, as a mum. And obviously, you were photographed breastfeeding Cormac whilst taking part in the race. So, just explain a little bit about that. The reasons you couldn't defer were because they don't allow you to defer on the grounds of pregnancy, do they?
No, and I'd lost my first place. So I'd got a place in 2014, and I was pregnant with Donica at the time. I'd fallen pregnant shortly after the ballot, and they refused me to defer because pregnancy is not an injury; it's a choice. It took me almost a year to fall pregnant with Donica. I would argue that it's certainly not a choice on the timing. And then I didn't have enough points the next year, or the year after, and then I applied for UTMB twice, didn't get in, and then at that point you had a guaranteed place the year after. So I knew long in advance I had a place, and then Cormac took a long time to conceive, and suddenly I realized that he's going to be 3 months in the start line. Their policy is not to allow deferrals, so I might as well go for a 10k jog and just enjoy the atmosphere.
Yeah, and obviously now since the photograph has went viral, and you've talked a little bit more about your training, because you were just you were really diligent, obviously did everything really carefully, but you kept up your training while you were pregnant, didn't you?
I mean, I was very lucky. I knew that I was going to be doing UTMB, and that was kind of my focus, and it wasn't a thing saying I know I'm going to be in the start line, because I took my first running steps after having Donica 3 months after. I had real pelvic floor weakness, I had an episiotomy and a difficult labour. So I never thought I'd be on the start line, but I did focus what I was doing around that. I stopped running at 5 months to try and make sure I wasn't too much pressure. And I kept up pull-ups, tricep dips, stair climber, hiking on an incline and treadmill, really kept as fit as I could do through the pregnancy. Maybe I'm not saying I'd be on the start line, but on knowing that I would get back to fitness the quickest, and actually for my mental health. I knew that was being the best thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never run a 100-mile race, but I can't imagine how uncomfortable you must have been, and how what you must have gone through out there as a woman. I mean, I just can't fathom it. I mean, how bad really was it?
It's every time someone mentions that I get these shooting pains in my breast. It was bad. I was so he was exclusively breastfed going into the race. We had backup stores, and he had to have a bit of formula during the race because I couldn't carry enough over to the UK. But exclusive breastfeeding around the clock to not seeing him for 16 hours. I basically I was sporting a pair of watermelons, and I was like diving behind every tree, every checkpoint down the loos, expressing, trying to get the bumps out. it really took my mind off how much my legs hurt, which is a good thing. It was really painful. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't good.
I mean, you're like, so, yeah, you're an absolute hero. And I mean, did you have any idea when the photograph was taken by the guy? It was from Strava, wasn't it? The photographer that took the picture.
Alexis Beck. So he was working for Strava and for Run as well.
Yeah. And did you ever have any idea of what the consequences would be of that photograph?
No, I mean, I wasn't really on social media at all. So I didn't really know what Instagram was. I barely used Facebook. I didn't have time in my life for social media. So I really didn't think it was anything abnormal, what I was doing. I mean, everyone in that race had their own story, had their own challenges, and I was just overcoming the challenges in front of me to get around the race. So to me, it was completely normal. That you just do what you have to do, and you're juggling as a mum in your daily life. It was just another thing to handle, and we just hoped we were going to say no. It's quite a personal thing, breastfeeding, and I wasn't kind of out there in public. I was at the side, but we thought, it was such a struggle for me to get to the start line, and I should never have had to be kind of doing it at 3 months just to get my place, and they really needed to reconsider their policies. So we thought maybe if he shares a photo with the organizer, they'll change their policies. And we thought, great, that would be an awesome outcome. That's the best outcome that can happen. That still hasn't happened. However, what then happened was beyond anything I could have ever expected. And I think the story became, it's not really about me. It's very much about the debate on motherhood, and that mothers have the right to dream big, and that we treat mothers and fathers very differently in terms of what part of their life goes to being the parent and what part of their life they retain for themselves. And that really is a story. It's not, ultramarathon's quite niche. It's not really about me, but I was so amazed by the platform that it gave other women to start sharing their stories. And I think the wave that maybe that triggered, and a lot of other stories, Jasmine's story as well, has triggered about females in sport and mothers in sport over the last year. Yeah,
I agree. It's been I think it's brilliant. I'm so glad you did it, and I completely agree that there's even now there's that that little part of us that just struggles to remember that you were a person before you became a mother, and you shouldn't feel any guilt about wanting to retain that, keep that person alive. You don't have, I always say I'm really proud to be Lily's mummy and Daisy's mummy and Poppy's mummy, but my name's Laura.
Yeah, I'm just Donica's mum. Now he's at school, I'm Donica's mum, and you're like, no, I've got a nick. No, I don't. It's much easier to be that.
Yeah,
but it is, and I'm a better mother.
Yeah,
because I'm not just a mother. I think when you feel all you are as a mother, and you feel kind of daily failings. I fail on a daily basis as a mother. Like yesterday, he didn't have his dance kit, and he had to wear his PE kit, and I forgot the water bottle. I mean, I fail on a daily basis. It's okay. We all fail. That was everything. And I was measuring myself on kind of doing that. I would really struggle. There's so many parts to me. There's so many things I love doing. And because I have that, I think I can parent them better, and I can be a better role model to them.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 boys that are going to grow up never ever thinking that women are less strong than men.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, it's just, what I feel so strongly about now is, letting women realize how brave and how capable they are. And, whether that's through ultra running or, whatever, just because, you and I both like to run doesn't have to be just running, but just something that, like you say, realizes that you are not the sum of, I forgot to send their packed lunch today, or you're not the sum of your worst parenting mishaps. You're much more than that, and you are capable. And I just think anything that we can do to make more women realize that is just such a positive thing. Yeah, so on the back of that, what more do you think could be done to get more women involved in the sport, in ultra running?
Oh God. I think ultra running, I think running in general, And I think ultra running can take quite a lot of time and is quite niche. And you don't have to be aiming for the biggest ultra marathons to run and to love running and to use it for so many different ways that we run it. I mean, running a lot is my me time. If I didn't run, I would do something else. Some women might actually go, I do art in my free time, and your story is giving me the chance to say I want to do my art because I need time for myself, and that's how I push myself. There's so much more. I mean, there's so much more in terms of starting young. So at school, I said I decided I wasn't a runner when I came second last the mile. I was the unsporty kid, and that stayed with me for so many years to come. So and female participation in sport drops off a cliff when girls become teenagers. I think it's low teens percentage of women that are girls that are getting enough exercise, and that sets you up for life. So I think we need to start young and tell girls there's no reason girls should be doing less sport than boys, and finding things that they love doing that they can then take through their lives and believing that they're good at it. And you don't have to win medals or be in competitions to do sport. Sport is for absolutely everyone. So it's starting young, and I think then it's getting kind of women back in after they have babies. So far better advice on exercise during pregnancy. The new advice is you need kind of 150 minutes at least a week. That's not getting out there. So we need to do a lot more on that. We need to research far more about female athletes. I've been reading over and over again Stacey Sims' book War about how there's just no research on women, and we need to correct all of that because we are not small men, as she says. And giving the women the experiences and the sports they want to take part in. Running is one of them. There are so many other things that women can do. And often because it's not a time of the day, like guys will go to their football match because it's in the diary. We need to find things that we put in the diary to carve out that time for us. And I think my training plan gives me that permission, but we need to take that permission to do something for ourselves all the way through our lives, because it benefits us in so many ways. So garbled answer, but I'm so passionate about if we can move the needle on women doing exercise, not to lose weight, but just to feel better about themselves and have a great time, and the physical and the mental health. That's such a great thing that we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. There's this thing that lots of women who were interviewed said they would like to do more exercise, but they felt guilty about it. And I talked to a couple of secondary school PE teachers as part of that, and they said that by the time girls get to 14, if you've got a class of 30, you'd be lucky if 3 or 4 could run the length of a football pitch without. I mean, and I said, as a mum, as a pet, that's what we should feel guilty about, the fact that we've got a generation of 14-year-olds that can't run 50 meters, not about taking an hour to go for a run or ride a bike or go for a swim or whatever it is. I mean, that was, I was the same. I was completely an exercise avoider at school, so I know why. You don't want to, when you're a 14-year-old girl, the last thing you want to do is get sweaty running around in those horrible PE kits. And
our kids' exercise levels are correlated to their mothers.
Yeah.
Not their father, they're correlated to their mothers. So if the mother sets a good example, that's when the children follow. And I find kind of very much, I did no sport as a child. I first did sport at university, and it was only because if you're in a rowing crew, you got to go on crew dates with other crews. And I quite like that idea of like kind of good dating. So I joined a rowing crew and did like rugby dates. And it was basically around dating. That's really shallow.
Yeah.
But that's when I started doing sport and realized I really loved it. I loved running around. I just didn't have the confidence. And anyone got on my college rugby team because they didn't have enough. So it's looking at how I parent my children now and not forcing them into anything, but naturally getting to lead an active lifestyle. So all from like the nursery we choose to the fact that my son walks up a 70-meter hill to school every day, and I have to carry the 13 kilo smaller one on my back, which is like my training. But we do fun sport. We have little sprints up the stairs. We just make exercise fun. And I know that they're not going to drop out as they go through, because it's just being outside and being active is part of who we are as a family. You make it the norm for your kids, don't you? That's and it's normal for them to see you put your trainers on and popping off for a run, and just like you say, making it what's normal. Okay, now just thinking about
you know, practically, how you make it work time wise. Let's think about the, you know, slightly more recently, the 268-mile spine fusion race, which you finished in incredible second place, a phenomenal performance. How on earth did you manage to fit in the training for that race around everything else that you do?
I think what people need to realize is training for an ultra marathon does not need to take more time than training for a marathon. I think, and even a lot of the marathon training plans are pretty crazy in terms of miles a week. I rarely run more than 40 miles a week. I just don't have time. And spine, I had gone freelance and I was working, and I could carve out the time a bit easier for me, working on different projects rather than when I was CEO at the startup I co-founded, and during kind of UTMB, I was kind of so busy during that, and that was a real struggle. But for me, it's about quality. It's about, if you need someone to make you do the workouts and give you permission, then coaches are brilliant, and also structuring it. So Eddie was very much like, we need to do this week, you need to find a lot of time this one week because we're going to do 3 back-to-back 4 hours. And I do drop off, get it done, go to work, sort things out, and then I'd work again in the evening. So I do a lot. Most evenings I'm working till late at the night because I've got training earlier. In the morning, it's run commuting. It's doing it straight after drop off. It's doing everything I can to stay active. It's buggy running. It's if we see my parents who live 12 miles away, but it's all via canal, then my hubby will drive the kids and we'll drive and I'll run back. So it's very much fitting in everything you can around your day, but really understanding that to complete the events, you don't need to train like a pro. And I do think kind of, what could I do if I was able to run 70 plus mile weeks? How fast could I get? What kind of things could I do? But that doesn't fit in my life. And the things I'd have to give up in time to do that aren't things that I want to do. I don't care about getting kind of half an hour quicker over 50 miler. So it really is kind of having the confidence that, I think strength training has been the other thing for me. I've been strength training longer than I've been running. And I think over the longer distances, that's what stops me getting injured and helps my form stay towards the end of a race and stay strong. So really heavy weightlifting in the gym and some cross training. I love spinning. I love boxing. But really kind of being kind on yourself and saying, I only have this time that I can give to my running. Let's be as really precise as we can about what that time is, but knowing that you can't look at other people who don't have children, who maybe don't have full-time jobs, and try and compare yourself and think just because you can't find the time they have doesn't mean you can't complete the race and do really well. You just have to be really smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, if we all didn't have a go because we didn't have the, you know, all the time in the world to train, then think of all the opportunities we'd miss. Okay, and what was the race itself like? You know, how did it go?
Spine?
Yes.
Spine was amazing. It was I was wondering what to do, and UTMB being my kind of first race after pregnancy, and that's 3 months, and it was a big hike because I couldn't put any pressure on, and I'd been a bit injured afterwards, and it was like finding a challenge for that year. And Jazz had just got the winter record with her amazing picture, and we'd been in contact, and I thought, and she'd said something to me about it being amazing to get away for a few days and just have that time to herself. And I thought, this is the perfect way that I can do the same thing. And I'd never done fully non-stop for that period of time. I think my longest race actually had been UTMB and then Spartathlon before that. And I'd never seen the Pennine Way. And I probably wasn't going to have kind of 3 weeks to walk it or wherever people walk it in. So it was really about taking some time out, being a lot fitter than I was since I had the baby. Cormac was 11 months. And I'd just given up breastfeeding before actually I weaned on the event because the best way to stop breastfeeding is to be away from your child for a week and to not pump. And I loved it. And I had some brilliant people accompany me for a few days. And then I had a couple of days just on my own in solitude in the beautiful kind of Cheviots, and it was exactly what I needed. And I know it's a race, and I was kind of pushing, and I planned my entire race to take kind of just less than 5 days so I could get that train I wanted to get, which got me back for nursery pickup on the Thursday. My entire race was planned to a nursery pickup, which that's what mums do, right? You had 7 days. I had to make that nursery pickup. I promised the boys, for one. I promised my mother. But it's just a brilliant race. It's so different to kind of running flat out. I think looking after yourself, looking after your kit, it's so different to the shorter races. You've got 60 miles between checkpoints. You've got to be able to look after yourself. You've got to be able to map read. You've got to be able to sustain the effort. And I really enjoyed having a new challenge. And I think this could be something that I look to do more of. I'd love to take on Tour de Géant, which is, I guess, the equivalent in the mountains. And I think I have the confidence to do that now.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so how much did you sleep?
Not much. So I went through the first night with no sleep, which I quite like to do. The second night we had a big storm come in. And the great thing about not being having to race is that I was like, there's a storm's come in. The most sensible thing for me to do is I'm about to arrive at a checkpoint with beds. I'm going to sleep. So I had my biggest kind of break there. I think in all, I actually had a sleep tracker on because they were doing a study. So in the 5 days, so 5 nights, I slept 11 hours.
Wow.
In total, which I was pretty sleep deprived by the end, but actually it wasn't too bad. UTMB start line, I was like looking around, everyone's like 6 o'clock at night, they were really nervous. I'm like, nah, I got this. Like, I don't need to sleep. I'm done with, like, I can go through 2 nights, it'll be fine. I had 20 minutes and yeah, it was absolutely fine. But the spine is they're not sleeping because you often hit the checkpoints not at night because they're 60 miles apart, so you could be different times of day. And so if you hit a checkpoint in the afternoon, you could have only sleep you have a massive meal of like lasagna and kind of pie, and then you just get your head down to digest it for an hour or so, and then you wake up, have another meal, and then go. So it's not kind of you stop and sleep for the night, although you can do and finish in the time. So people shouldn't be put off doing the long events if they're like, well, actually I want a few hours a night. You can easily do that within the time limits too. I needed to get home though.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd set yourself a target, and that was it. The boys were the most important thing. I think it's widely recognised that a big part of ultra running is up here as opposed to what your legs are doing. What strategies do you use to get you through when you're deep in the pain cave and sort of starting to struggle?
I think I just go back to, I have one thing which is kind of going around my body and saying what's happening and preventing a lot of the pain. So if you've got a rub on your feet, you deal with it there and then, because in 5 hours that's going to be bleeding and really sore, and then you can't deal with it. So I'm always going around going kind of, okay, have I drunk enough? Have I eaten enough? Have I taken my salts? How is everything? And that kind of mental checklist helps you just check in with actually everything is fine. When things get tough, I just think why I'm doing it. And this isn't my job, and I don't have to do this for my livelihood, and I choose to do this, and I choose to see how far I can push my body, and I choose to be out in these beautiful locations, and this is what I love. And I love the fact that it gets hard because it takes me out of my kind of comfort zone. It takes me away from life. I love living the simple life on races and then appreciating everything kind of back at home. So I think I say it's a choice, and there will be races that I'm not particularly into, and I'm like, actually, this isn't getting me anywhere. I might just choose to stop. But I think knowing why you're doing it and it being a true reason within yourself. I think I was chatting some checkpoint stuff, volunteers at 100 miler. I was pacing my friend out, and they said, we've seen an increase in DNFs because some people just want to do it for Instagram likes. And I think you can do certain things for Instagram likes, but I'm not sure you can get yourself a really hard 100 miler. Yeah. It has to come from within. So for me, it's really choosing those challenges on things that I truly want to do. And the UTMB was definitely one of those. And I think kind of what really got me through is the thought that I could run across the finish line with my boys. And my then 3-year-old was so desperate to run across the finish line because he was seeing all these other families do it, and he was so kind of during the week he's like, "Mummy, that's going to be us. It's going to be us, and I'm going to wear my t-shirt, and I'm going to buy one of those little wheels that turn around from the shop in Chamonix, and that's going to be me, Mummy." And I was like, "Oh, I better finish now." And it was him that kept me going, really, more than anything. So yeah, knowing why you're doing it and having confidence that you can, and going back into all those times where you thought you couldn't and you did, and just playing them out in your mind. And I was kind of thinking of every time something goes wrong, it's like, it's not as bad as when this happened in that race, or that happened, or if all else fails, it's just not as bad as childbirth. And I got through that. So I can get through anything.
Yeah, maybe that was a good thing at UTMB, that it was only 3 months after Cormac was born. Had that very fresh in your memory.
I remembered it. It wasn't fun. Like there's no anyone that compares an ultra marathon to giving birth. Giving birth is much worse. Although you don't really have the option to quit, so it kind of like pushes you towards it. But giving birth, yeah, much worse. Yeah, every time.
Yeah, maybe this is why, you know, women make good ultra runners. It's we're you know, there's something in our makeup that we're, you know, if we can do that, then running 100 miles.
Anything.
Okay, can you give us a quick overview of what you like nutrition wise during a race? I always like this question. I just think it's interesting.
So I love really nice food. I guess it depends. So I did a race on the weekend, and it was 45 miles, hilly at the start and then flat, and I basically did the whole race on cake and Haribo, because I really like cake and I really like the fizzy Haribo, not the the ones they have to have the sugar coating with like sour bit. So cake and Haribo. If it's a hot and in the cold, if my stomach's I've got a great stomach. In terms of, it will take pretty much anything in large quantities and doesn't care. So in the heat, if I'm struggling a bit more, then I like some of the chia gels and kind of fruit and lighter things. But if I think about spine and what I was eating, whole tubs of salt and vinegar Pringles, those pick-me-up chocolate bars with a biscuit on the outside, love those. Tonics wafers, hot races when you can't have things melting, peanut M&Ms. On the spine, I had these big baggies that I tipped between checkpoints, which were peanut M&Ms, cashews, and wine gums. Yeah, this is not like the pro nutrition, but basically, it's food is one thing. It's fuel, and it's kind of simple carbs. And so on races, so Spartathlon, when it was quite hot, avocado sandwiches, avocado wraps, cheese wraps, things like that went down really well. But ice cream, always ice cream, and salty potatoes. They're my favorite thing in Greece. They're like the best potatoes I've ever had. At like the mountainside in Greece. But food is something for your kind of, it makes you happy. It's emotional. For me, it's emotional. I will look forward to I only have those pick-me-up bars on races. I'm not allowed them in my day-to-day life because I just eat too many. So it's something to look forward to and to appreciate and to love. And I'm sure that someone could clean up my diet and give me this beautiful kind of race fuel plan. But if it was a detriment to my mood and my happiness, I might be slower. So yeah, I really like junk food. Yeah, sorry.
Well, I don't know. Well, you came second, Sophie, so it obviously worked all right.
It's fuel. I think kind of you just have to get calories in. At the checkpoints, there was like poured liquid butter onto my toast because you just need calories, and you need deep fried stuff and chips and cheese and lasagna, and it's just about what calories can you actually get in. And if you're having all these kind of dry, kind of homemade OT bar things, you're not going to get enough calories in. So liquid butter on eggs any day.
Yeah, quite, I'd like that much better than, you know, 2 gels every half an hour or whatever.
Oh, and they're so bad. They're so bad for your teeth, and they're disgusting. Like, if you could have the option of having something nice, why would you not take it?
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
sorry.
Okay. What are your future plans regarding, you know, running and ultra running? What have you got coming up, and what do you, or you know, or what you know, what do you hope to achieve?
So I've got this year. I'm kind of working a lot on strength and form and getting more efficient. I think since Spine with a few races, and I did a track race for the first time, which I really enjoyed. I love the mental game of a 24-hour track race, but I was kind of injured at the time, so I just did my 100 miles and stopped because my ankle, I couldn't actually get the laces done up my shoe anymore, and I thought, right, this is a sign to stop. But I've got the qualifier for Spartathlon, and I will definitely be in the belt. I didn't get a UTMB place this year. I tried for that, to run it properly, didn't get that. So I'd love to run Spartathlon again. I'd love to do another 24-hour track race and see how close I can get to the British team qualifier, and just see how fast I could be. I think I've moved out of London, so all my running's done on trails now, so I can't find any flat near me, but which is great for like now wanting to run flat races. Like when I was in London, I was trying to do UTMB, and I'm like, I've got no hills, and now I've got no flat. But yeah, I think it's just finding some new challenges. Tour de Géant's on my bucket list. I'd love to do Bob Graham. My grandmother's from the Lake District. It's where I kind of spent all my holidays, and it's kind of the place I feel most home at. So I'd love to go and do that. But really just see what comes up, have some fun, get a bit stronger, get faster. I started doing park run because my coach said it was good for me. It's really painful. But I could definitely be a bit quicker at park run. But just taking the pressure off, I think. It's great to have kind of one challenge a year, but I think if you have a lot of them, and then your life is focused around going from one to the other, and what's the next, I think sometimes just taking the time to do fun. I did the mince pie run in December, which is a local one, which is laps. It was brutal. I mean, the water was almost at my short line in some of it. And you got mince pie every lap. So now we're out of London, finding local, smaller trail races, having fun. My husband is doing the Ice Ultra in Sweden at the end of February. So the next kind of couple of months are really around him and his training and his kit, and having a focus on his running and supporting that for once. So yeah, like I'll see what I get into this year and plan around it accordingly. But I'm excited to certainly do some new races this year, which will be really fun.
Yeah, it sounds really fun. And do you have any other? You mentioned the one there, the one that was similar to the Spine race. Yeah. And do you have any other bucket list ones that you'd really like to do?
I'd love to run a race in the US. I think obviously kind of Western States and level, they're so iconic, and I think seeing the support out there, they're so difficult to get into. But that would definitely be something that I'd like to experience, more kind of ultra running culture, more than anything else, I think. But that, yeah, Tour de Géant, there are so many beautiful races out there, and I think everyone has the same ones on their bucket list because they're part of the Ultra Trail World Tour, and they're so heavily promoted. But you can find amazing races almost anywhere. If you look at the race calendars, there are some lovely ones in there that you may not know about, and friends that live in the Alps say you've got to do this one or that one. So when I meet people in races, I always say, well, what's been your favorite race so far? And I've got a list of all the gems that they pulled up. So I think certainly kind of going and doing smaller races that aren't so kind of heavily kind of media covered and aren't kind of so razzmatazz will be fun. But I really want to go back to Spartathlon. I think that's been my favorite race in terms of kind of just the whole show around it and just what it means. And So yeah, I'll go back to there. But I mean, I've got decades ahead of me as far as I'm concerned in terms of ultra running. So there's no rush to do everything at once. But I hope there's decades. I'm making sure, I'm trying not to burn out. So I do have decades, because I've got a friend, Edda, who I met her in Cambodia, and she must be in her 70s now, and she's still right up there. She's kind of not at the bottom of the field. She keeps going. She does 6-day races, and like, I want to be like her when I grow up. That's where I want to be. So whatever I can do to keep strong and not be injured, and do things slowly, just to give me that opportunity that when I finally have loads of time, because the kids will have gone, I actually have the body that can do it.
I think that's a really good overarching goal, isn't it? Just to stay healthy and keep enjoying it, keep loving it. Okay, so now we're just sort of coming towards the end now. So last few questions. What is the best piece of advice related to ultra running that you've ever been given?
Oh gosh, that's a good point. I think, and it wasn't good advice for the race, but when I did the Marathon des Sables, someone says start at the back and then overtake. And I think the pacing side, if I look at where I am in races, I never go off too quick. I'm always kind of quite cautious at the start, and then make it up. And I think it's better pacing that way, but it's also motivating that you're overtaking people rather than getting overtaken. So I think much more cautious pacing, thinking about the end goal, thinking about the average time, and just being really steady towards that. If you're not going to be running up a hill at the end of the race, don't run up the hill at the start of the race. And really kind of think about constant effort rather than kind of trying to kind of go all out there. So I think it's probably in terms of pacing, and I think that's where I get to the end of races kind of feeling much better, because I have never gone into the red zone at any point. I just don't understand a mountain race where these guys killing themselves flying up the mountain at the start. I know I'm going to pass them on the way down because they're too tired to be able to really push the downhill. So I think not having an ego, because it's hard to see everyone fly off at the start sometimes, but kind of getting the inner confidence that you're going to see them soon enough, so it's okay. You'll just see them later. That's really good advice. And if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice about running, what would you, I guess you might say that keep doing it. Don't let the fact that you came second to last in the mile make you stop. What would you have told yourself if you could? I never started. We were forced to do that mile at school. It wasn't kind of something that any of us chose. There were some fast ones, but none of us wanted to do that mile. And I think I wish I'd had more role models and people around me, but I would have said kind of, you can change. You can get better at things that you don't think you can do. Just because you can't do something now doesn't mean you can't do something in the future. And you can improve, and anyone can get stronger. And I see kind of friends go from kind of, they've not run they're going to start the 5K and suddenly they're running 100K, or they're getting a faster marathon time. So I think it's having the confidence to say, I'm not going to win get a world record at this sport, but I can get better and I can take on new challenges. And if I could have put my mind to it and I do everything I can, I plan really well for it, there's very little, I think, in the sport that I can't achieve. And if I'd known back then when I was 14, I think I'd have had such better kind of body image, and it would have saved kind of decades of angst around looking at myself for what I look like. And instead of now, kind of, I love my body for what it can do, and what it's done in terms of giving birth twice. But in terms of, I'd far rather be strong than skinny. And if I just known that when I was 14, it would have been a much easier life. I completely agree with you. What would be a piece of advice that you'd give for anybody who's watching, who's just thinking about perhaps entering their first ultra and hasn't
hasn't done it yet, what would be a piece of advice you'd give them?
I would say that don't think an ultra is more than a marathon and more difficult than a marathon. Ultras come in all shapes and sizes. You hear about the crazy ones. But actually ultras, there's walking starts to many ultra marathons. You have walkers, a lot of them. Just because you take a few walking steps doesn't mean that you haven't done an ultra marathon. It's a distance. It's not how you cover that distance. So choose something you really want to do. Choose a beautiful course. Choose a course that has really great checkpoints and food. I mean, there's a race I do every year just because of the cake. That's what I did last weekend. I love the cake. It's really good cake. Everyone knows I do the race just for the cake. As do, I reckon half the runners do too. But finding something that you're going to enjoy, maybe sign up with a friend, but having that confidence that even if you decide to walk the whole thing, you will get round. So then you can make it quicker by doing some running. But just doing that first one, you'll learn so much by just finishing, and you'll get a sense of what you want to do next. But not thinking that it's harder than a marathon. It's different. It's very different. There's a lot more things to take into account. Certainly kind of, you've got your footwear, you're on kind of trail normally, much more in different nutrition, but really just bite the bullet and do it, because I think especially for women, ultras are attractive because the time pressure is not there. I think when people say marathon, it's like, well, are you going to get a PB? And the course I ran last weekend, I did get a PB, and I was much fitter than the last time I did it. But the first half of the race was so muddy and I was slip sliding everywhere that I only ran the same as I'd done before, because of the conditions. So you can have a PB over a course, but unless you've got conditions, it doesn't really mean anything. So the pressure's really off, and you can just enjoy running for running's sake. So kind of, I think a lot of women, especially find ultras, just, for me, the idea of doing road marathons is just, why would I put myself under that stress?
Yeah.
It's stressful. This is not my job. This is what I do to relax, not to get really stressed. This is my kind of my letting go. So I think ultras allow you to do that a lot easier than maybe the road marathons, and it's a lot more fun kind of being out in beautiful nature than being alongside a city street.
And I can't remember, someone said to me that when you run a road marathon, the first question people ask you, even if they're not runners, people, when you get back in the office, how long did it take you? And then, but you know, when you switch to ultras, instead it's, how far was it? You know, which
much easier question. There's no, and you can't compare, even like you say, like we can't compare a 100-mile race. Like a 100-mile race could take kind of well under 20 hours or well north of 40 hours, and you could have the same fitness, and it's the conditions and the terrain. It just, you can't compare. And I think that takes the pressure off everything. Like I find running, I did a half marathon on holiday. We're in Lanzarote, and the hotel has its own half marathon every week. It's really stressful. I was looking at my watch like every mile going, should go a bit faster, or is this fast enough, or he's going a bit faster, or he just cut the corner. It was awful. I won't be doing that again.
I love that even you get, you know, caught up on that with all the, you know, all the running you've done, and you're still looking at your watch thinking, oh.
Horrible.
And what about, finally, you know, specifically for anyone who's watching, who's a mum, who not necessarily is thinking about entering an ultra marathon, but is just, like I mentioned earlier, perhaps struggling to keep those plates spinning, and what would be a piece of advice that you'd give them?
I think first thing is being kind on yourself. I think pregnancy puts our body through, it's trauma. I mean, it's, even if you're not having a C-section, it's major surgery, what it does to you. And I think getting the right support, getting the right assessment, having a mummy MOT, if you're early on, even you're further on, to say kind of, do you still have a diastasis recti? Where are you weak? And getting yourself back strong and is really, really important. So wherever you are on your motherhood journey, I still have pelvic floor problems. I still have to do physio exercises. It may take me years to recover. I'm focused on it, but I have brilliant people around me helping me. So this might be multiple pieces of advice, but one is you are worth getting strong. You are worth getting back to where you are. It can be done. It's not a permanent situation. So really looking after yourself, number one. I think finding the time. It's I always say, kind of at work we say, women ask for permission and men ask for forgiveness, and we don't push ourselves at work so much. But when you have a baby, it's like we don't even ask for permission because we just don't think we're entitled to do things. And I think that's terrible. And I think you need to find a way that you have that permission. And maybe that's sitting down with your partner and signing up for a race, signing up for a program, and saying, this is my coaching plan, getting a coach who gives you that training plan, that gives you kind of that permission to do those sessions and checks up on that you're doing them. If you don't feel that you can take that step and just go out for a run, because there is always something else to be done in the house or with the kids. But that hour run, that half an hour run you get will make you so much better in the long run. It's so hard to put ourselves first. So finding a way to do that, whatever you're doing, even if you're not training for a race, even if it doesn't have to be running, it could be yoga, it could be anything, but finding a way to make sure you have that time will just give you that kind of boost to your mental health as well as your physical health. And then you're in a better position to move forward. So it's hard, I think, kind of being a mum and kind of coming back from it. No one tells you how hard it's going to be physically and mentally. And I think we need to look after ourselves in the same way that we would look after our children. If they had a weakness in some way, or we look after our friends, we have to start saying to ourselves, and if we see someone that's struggling, we need to go and say to them as well, get some support in. On holiday, I had childcare in some of the mornings, so my husband and I could go and do our exercise, and the boys loved it and we loved it. And if we didn't have that, we'd been tag teaming and we wouldn't have got the time we needed for ourselves. And it's okay to say I'm important, because I'm a far better mother, because I put time for myself to get myself in the right state to be a better mother.
I think that's absolutely brilliant advice. Thank you ever so much. I think that just about brings us to the end. Thank you so much, Sophie, for joining us today. It's really, really interesting to talk to you as a mum myself. Really interesting, and I know that lots of people that are watching will be inspired by you and the things that you've achieved. And thank you for all you've done to inspire us. And we'll put the links to your social media so people can follow you and see what you're up to. And thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you soon.